Welcome back to Stop My Crisis. I'm your host, Vivian Gaspar. Business credit is one of the most important tools for success small business owners can have in their portfolio. And I'm here today, very fortunately, to have an expert in how small business owners can act more like large corporations and utilize business credit to their advantage. Here with me today is S.E. Day. S.E., welcome to the show, and thank you for helping small business owners last and profit and thrive in their businesses by using finance to their benefit.
Vivian, thank you for having me on the show. In launching this book, I know your passion for small businesses and helping them achieve to stop their crisis, and I thought this would be the perfect place to launch this book with you from an advocate standpoint.
Well, we're very excited because I know this can change and pivot small business owners who might be getting started or launching to a new level in their business. Understand that overcoming the financial hurdle is what would help them make or break or even hire a bigger staff or get the marketing or whatever they need to get to a higher level of success. And you are going to be what helps them accomplish that.
Absolutely. In your opening, you said that business credit was one of the most important tools a small business can have in their portfolio. You're absolutely right. Shockingly, 99% of small businesses do not have business credit, nor do they know how to go by establishing it.
I am really shocked about that. How is it virtually every single small business owner does not understand that? How is that possible?
Two issues. One, there's no unilateral lending process across the spectrum between banks, credit unions, credit reporting companies. No one's synced. The second thing is small business owners think that business credit is a misnomer. They think that you have to use your personal credit to get business credit, and that's not the case.
Is there anyone currently out there educating small business owners on that? How about through the SBA or SBDC or any other business advisory to small business owners?
No.
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 That's possibly what is the answer behind why 99%?
This is what gave me the wherewithal to write this book. I went to a conference years ago, and it was basically how to bring funding to small business owners. In this conference, a room full of 200 people, you had all of your alphabet soup. All that soup you just named, including the Federal Reserve, the FDIC, Bank of America, Chase, and they were talking about business credit. So for an hour, they talked about how a small business owner would need business credit to make their business grow. And finally, after an hour, I raised my hand and I said, I have a question. Can anyone in the room tell me how to go about establishing business credit?
Let me guess. There was silence.
Crickets.
Crickets. Worse than silence.
Yes, worse than silence. So I said, I've done over 9,000 hours of research in dealing with banks, credit unions, credit reporting companies. I love the way they call them credit reporting bureaus. They're not bureaus. They're for-profit companies.
Of course they're. They get money.
Experian, yes, those are for-profit.
Aren't they totally for-profit? Where they actually charge for every single time they give you a credit report?
Yes, they want money. So they're not bureaus. They're companies.
Misnomer right there.
Misnomer. So one of the things that I realized was in doing that research in 17 years of dealing with businesses and structuring businesses was that small business owners do not understand the playing field. It's a maze.
I've always heard to have good personal credit, you should have some amount of credit cards at a certain amount of usage level.
Yeah.
You know, I heard it's like you should have no more than 33% or so, or 30%
actually,
used.
no more than 30%.
Is that, I'm sorry?
No more than 30% usage,
right.
yes.
No more than 30% used to establish better credit as an individual. Now, people say, well, I don't want a credit card, I don't want debt. But you should in order to have better credit worthiness because you don't know if you want a mortgage or if you want a car. So for a small business owner, if they're not looking to take on business credit, what is the benefit for them to establish credit worthiness for their business entity?
Here's the deal. I'll ask a business owner. Plans for the future.
Do you mean like a 5-year plan?
It can be a 1-year plan. And most is like, I want to grow a successful business and make money.
Now, shouldn't they have a business plan to be able to answer that properly?
Well, that's a whole nother topic. But before we go there, let's go back on the credit side.
Right.
In this country, cash is no longer king. Credit is king.
Do enough people realize that?
No. A lot of business owners are like, well, I don't want debt.
That's exactly my point.
Managed debt is good debt, and you can grow your business through managed debt.
Now, do you
Having
also
no
address
debt-
managed debt in your book?
Say again?
Do you address managed credit in your book?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are different phases of credit that you should have. So a credit card is one thing, even on the personal side, right? But that's only one strain of credit. What about installment loans? So if you have a credit card, let's say your credit score was 730, it will never go over 730. I don't care if you only use 14% usage of the card, it'll never go over 730 because to a lender, you don't have enough risk. We need to know how are you with installment loans.
Okay, so here's my credit question. For a small business owner's credit, for the business entity,
Right.
if you're a sole proprietor, does that still count or
Towards your business?
towards your business?
No.
Okay, so you have to be an established, is it LLC or S Corp?
Let's talk about
Or
that.
C Corp.
We touched on that earlier.
Correct.
Here's the deal. You need to be a structured corporation.
So that includes the S Corp, C Corp, or LLC?
No, not LLC.
Not LLC. So
me
it can
tell
only
you
be an
why.
S Corp or C Corp.
Yes, because you have the S Corp has something called pass-through taxation.
That's correct, yes.
And this is why a lot of people run to the LLCs because of pass-through taxation. You can get the same thing with an S Corp, pass-through taxation. The only difference is you have to file your intentions with the IRS.
Correct.
I think it's the form 8338 that you plan to file as a small business with pass-through taxation. But because corporations are more structured, and when I say that, you're set up with the Secretary of State, you have your board members listed, you have your principals listed.
Correct.
Two things creditors care about: stability.
Wait, you said two things.
Two things corporate creditors care about:
Correct.
stability and accountability.
Okay.
I want to be able to touch you when I need you. In other words, I want to be able to call and talk to a live person that's a member of that corporation. And stability. I want you to be making money. I want you to be a stable company. I don't want you to have a post box that's used as your business address.
Oh, P.O. Box.
Yeah.
What about, okay, now that we're on that topic,
Okay.
does it make a difference if it's a UPS store address? One
Yes,
of
it
those?
does.
So that's not going to work either?
That's not good at all.
Okay.
You can actually use your home address. In fact, I encourage you in the book, use your home address. It's a stable address. You've been there. It's
Okay.
registered to you.
Here's another question of why someone would want business credit. So even if somebody right now says, oh, I don't want to have the burden having debt, what about in the future? What if right now, for example, let's say someone starts as a business that rents out of a small office space or retail space, or even there's a lot of home-based businesses.
Right.
What if down the line, they might end up growing their business
Right.
and might look to maybe perhaps buy commercial real estate? Can a entity such as your C Corp or S
Right.
Corp build up enough business credit to buy real estate in that entity's name? Can that be that purpose?
Yes. Now let's go back to how old corporations are. They've been around since the 1800s, which is why they are the preferred
Dun and Bradstreet we're
structure.
talking about.
No, I'm talking about corporations.
Oh,
S
just
corp-
the concept of corporations.
The legal structure
I
of
see.
corporations has been around since the 1800s, which means it is strong. When you get your tax ID number, a corporation is considered an artificial entity.
Yes, you have
That
to,
means
you
it
kind of
can
give
live-
birth to it, and when
you
you
have to
don't
give
want it
birth to
more,
it.
you have to kill it off, so to speak.
Right.
You
But
have
the
to close
first
it.
chapter in the book is you are not your company. Think about it. You're a small business owner. You wear all the hats. You have to do everything. But your company is like a baby. You have to grow it up. You are not the baby. You're the parent of the baby. Same thing with a corporation. Your tax ID number is like the Social Security number for your business. And you should build it up and build credit in that. In the book, I talk about the ways to build it up, the right corporate structure, and there are 11 critical requirements that every small business owner must have.
11.
11.
That's something we're going to cover now.
No,
So you really do need
no.
to get the
But
book,
I'll
because
give you
that's
two
something
of
I
them.
never even realized.
I'll give you two of them. Let's say you start a business, right?
Yes.
You're doing fine and you're doing banking as, Stop My Crisis, Vivian Gaspar.
That's not the name. I'm not going to say it now.
Right, doing business as Stop My Crisis. You're considered a sole proprietor.
Correct.
because your company, your bank account is not attached to a corporation. It's attached to you, the individual. That's one critical element. You have to have a bank account
Of
in your
course.
business name.
I'm sure every small business owner has a bank account in their business's
No,
name,
they
right?
don't. No,
Oh,
no. A lot of them are doing business as. Here's the thing. A lot of people will get their tax ID number and say, hey, I got my business up. I'm ready to go. And all
well,
you
how
have
do
is
you
your
not
tax
have a
ID
bank
number.
account? How do you not have a bank account for that business?
It's doing business as.
So an individual doing business as a, wait,
Right. I already have my
my
account
name,
with my
doing
bank.
business number with my company name?
Exactly.
That's not sufficient. That's not enough.
SE Day doing business as CETA Media Corporation.
Ah, that's not enough.
Terrible. Terrible.
That's not a good way.
Another thing, real simple. What is your email address to your company?
It should be at my company. It's Vivian at
A
stopmycrisis.com.
lot of people, it's seday@gmail.com.
That is
Corporate creditors don't
it's
take
very,
you.
very unprofessional.
Corporate creditors don't take you serious. If you don't take your business serious, why would a corporate creditor?
No, I've always known that it should be an at yourbusinesses.com. You should always, everybody should have a real URL website.
I totally
If you go to
agree.
stopmycrisis.com, my email is Vivian at stopmycrisis.com.
I totally agree.
And whenever I've seen that someone else does whatever at Gmail,
Right.
I say, no, stop.
Right. I don't even want to do business with you because how
Exactly.
serious are you about your business?
And it also means to me that you're an individual who's very serious about their business and that you're doing it full time. And this is something that you care about. It's if someone's doing at Gmail,
Right.
I give them less credibility in my mind automatically.
So does
I
a
started
corporate creditor.
my first company when I was 19.
So does
I've
a
started
corporate creditor.
5. I have some idea about what this is about.
Right.
So when I see someone else doing that easy mistake, what does that reflect in my mind? So I completely agree with you on this.
I agree with you. I have started, Vivian, over 22 companies.
Oh my God, you look great for 80 years old.
I know, right? And
I was like, how did you do that when you were like 12? You started your first business?
I've built business credit for each one of those companies.
That's great. You really, I think it's going to be fantastic that people can reach out to you off your website and speak to you and get consultations because
Absolutely.
everybody needs to do that. That's
Absolutely.
amazing. I
And
think so many people don't know what they're doing, but they want a successful business and they're not going to get it.
Right,
And they're looking at you like, oh my God, I have
Right.
no idea.
right.
Wow,
Another
this is
thing
very
that's more
valuable.
powerful about the book is I give you more than 25 corporate creditors in the book with instructions that tell you how to set up business credit with those corporate creditors.
Thank you very much, SC. That is fantastic information.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to share the PowerPoint and then we will go into it. Okay, and can everyone hear me now? I think we're good. Okay, so now we're going to go into, thank you, what you need to know and how to get started. So in the video, there were a few things that I hope you picked up on, where I said some of the items that you need in order to build your business credit. These things are crucial. We're going to talk more about them as we go through the PowerPoint. But one of the things in there that is 100% true, business credit is one of the most important tools a small business can have in their tool chest. And the reason being is we all will love to start a business, and many of us have started a business. And as I said, you'll start a business and immediately, as soon as you start your business, you're ready to go and get financing. You're ready to go and get credit. But you have to remember this. Banks lend money to people who don't need the money. And you say, God, that is so true. I know that. I lived that. Well, the reason that is because this business or this person has shown themselves to be above the fray and be able to handle the debt that would be given them through a loan. So one quote here, Benjamin Banneker, he was the former federal chair under the Bush administration into the Obama administration. And one of the things that he said was, the US economy cannot survive without credit. It's not me saying it. When I tell you credit is king, cash is no longer king. If you look at your lives today, you live through digits when it comes to finances. In the federal workspace, you can't even receive a check. Everything is digitized. Money goes into your account. Most jobs, you have direct deposit. You live by digits. All you want to know is, do you have enough digits in your account to acquire the things that you want to acquire? If you have enough digits, you can buy those things. If you don't have enough digits, you can't. I don't think I have carried cash in the past 10 years, but I'm still surviving because I lived through those digits. But those digits also amount to credit. Now, we're going to get into, I'll talk a little bit more about personal credit and business credit, but just to hit a few things up front, to talk about a couple of benefits of the business credit. A couple of facts. Business credit is established methodically and strategically. It is not a marathon. I mean, it is not a sprint. It's a marathon. It takes time. It takes a lot of time to build your business credit. But once you build it, it lives on its own. All you have to do is pay your bills on time. And I'll dig deeper into that. Business credit is standalone. So you can build business credit without your personal credit. Now, the banks and the legislators have made it a little more difficult. After 9/11, they introduced the U.S. Patriot Act. In the Patriot Act, there's a section 326. And section 326 is verification of identification. What that means is, before 9/11, you could go into a bank and open up a business checking account based on the tax ID number, the business address, everything business, business, business. After 9/11, because they wanted to make sure that fraud, financial transaction card fraud was not being done on American soil by terrorists, they created the U.S. Patriot Act with Section 326. And that Section 326 meant every time you open up a business account, your personal information had to be verified. Now, this is where your personal credit is going to come in. We'll talk more about that. But another fact, business credit provides unlimited financial opportunities. And I'll just give you one example. Let's say that in your personal credit, you have, let's say, 750 credit score. With that 750 credit score, and let's say your debt to income ratio is less than 30%, you're making $100,000. With that and that $100,000 you're making, you can qualify for a $1 million mortgage. Now, I didn't say go and utilize that mortgage, but you can qualify for that mortgage. With business credit, your business credit, that same 750 credit score can qualify your business for 10 to 100 times that amount. So now we're not talking about $1 million anymore. We're talking about 10 million to 100 million. This is how powerful business credit can be for your small business. But you have to understand there are processes and procedures to get it done. Some of the myths, it's hard to establish. Business credit is not hard to establish. Go back to the top. It's a methodical and strategical process of putting everything in place. Another myth, it's based on your personal credit. Business credit is standalone. It's not based on your personal credit. Now, do you have to have good personal credit? Yes, and I'll tell you about that later, something that you want to do. Can be established quickly? No, it cannot. Business credit cannot be established quickly. And as we go further, we're going to talk about things like occurrences. So now, some of the personal differences or the differences. Your personal credit is based on a complex algorithm. And I'm talking about it is almost proprietary because they don't put it out. But you see, it's evaluated on numerous criteria. The number one criteria is timely payments. If you do nothing else, pay your bills on time. Pay them on time. It's also based on credit usage. You heard me say something in that video about 30%. That's the sweet spot. If you can have 10% credit usage, that would be best. But some people will get a credit card and they'll max it out. That's 100% usage. That's a strike, a major strike, because a bank will look and say, if you cannot handle the $5,000 that we gave you or the $10,000 that we gave you in credit and you max it out, then you are a credit risk because now you have no leverage. But the other side of that knife is credit amounts. So even though a bank will give you a $10,000 credit card, they don't want you to utilize that $10,000 credit card. So you say, well, why did you give it to me? Again, this is part of their whole algorithm. Also, inquiries. When you go, let's say you go and look for a buy, you want to buy your vehicle. Every time you go to a dealership, they're going to run your credit. That's the phrase, we run your credit, or they pull your credit. Every time they pull your credit, that's a hit. Now, if you went to 4 dealerships in a matter of a week, the credit bureaus, the credit companies will tell you that that should all count in one inquiry because you were doing the same thing, looking for a vehicle, Right, that should count that way, but it doesn't. Each time your credit is pulled, it'll decrease your credit score from 4 to 5 points. Now, if you're working hard to get your credit score up high, 4 to 5 points, that's 20 points in a week. And it also shows 4 inquiries. The ideal sweet spot, 2 inquiries on your credit report in 2 years. That's it. Length of history. So let's say you have a credit card that you don't use. You've had this credit card for 10 years, but you rarely use it. Don't close it out because they base it on the length of history of your total credit length. Another, debt to income ratio. Now, I'm not talking about business credit. Everything I'm talking about now is personal credit. And another thing is credit mix. What is credit mix? As I said in the video, you have 1 credit card, you have 10 credit cards, and you have a 720 credit score. Your credit score will never go higher than 720. I don't care if you use less than 30%, you pay your bills on time, it'll never go higher than 720 because you do not have a good credit mix. And what a good credit mix is: credit cards, car loans, mortgages, personal lines of credit, installment loans. All of these things work towards a credit mix. And what it does for a lender can look at that and say, okay, this person has a mortgage, this person has a car loan, this person has 2 credit cards. The ideal credit card number is 2 to 3 credit cards, not 5, not 10, 2 to 3 credit cards. If you want to get above 800 credit score, 850, and we'll talk about on the FICO, there are over 1,000 credit companies out there. The ones we hear about are the big 3, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, right? It used to be the Beacon score, what they would look at. Now it's the FICO score. That is the most trusted score, your Fair Isaacs Corporation score. And that goes from 350 on the low end to 850 on the high end. Those people with above 800 credit score, they're considered perfect credit risk, which means you can walk into a bank, you can walk into a car dealership, you can get a mortgage, and these people will do business with you based on your stated income because your credit is so good. They know that if you can maintain that credit score, you're not going to mess it up. You will do some crazy things, but you will not mess up that credit score. Also, that last point, personal credit, it really controls every facet of your personal finances, your personal life, including getting a job, including getting insurance. It's all based on your personal credit score. And all of this happened by representatives in the Capitol, passing legislation that affects everyone. Now let's go to the real simple stuff. The business credit. Business credit primarily is based on timely payments. Further down in the slides, I'm going to show you a chart, and just to show you how easy this is. It's evaluated on two criteria. Those criteria are occurrences. Now, I'll explain what occurrences is, and frequency of payment. The frequency of payment is tied back to timely payments. Pay your bill on time, before time, every month. But what occurrences mean is it's based on the amount of transactions that you do. So if you went to Home Depot and you had a business credit account with Home Depot, what they want to see is how many occurrences, how many transactions have you done? So if you've done one transaction in 12 months, that can hurt your business credit score. If you've done 12 transactions in that 12-month time frame, that actually improve your business score, because they want to see you using business credit. Business credit is almost like currency. It's like money. Money is meant to flow. It's not meant to sit still. It's currency. That's why it's called, it has a current. If it's not flowing and it's not being used, then it's actually losing value. So those two criteria are the primary things, primary sets to actually getting business credit and maintaining and building business credit. And as I said before, business credit, it enhances your business unlimited buying power. With business credit, strong, sustainable business credit, your business is unlimited. You can do many, many things. Now, I talked about the big three: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You notice I don't have TransUnion on this slide. I have Dun & Bradstreet, and you see Gold Standard. Now, as I said before, corporations are well over 100 years old. Dun & Bradstreet is the gold standard when it comes to business credit for corporations. Dun & Bradstreet has been around just as long. And when corporations came on the scene in the late 1800s, Dun & Bradstreet realized early on that these companies need to have a credit profile, a credit rating. So they started working with businesses. But again, all of these companies are for-profit companies. They're not credit reporting bureaus. They're credit reporting companies. So they're for-profit. Equifax, if you will, Equifax has your personal and business. So does Experian, personal and business. And this is what I mean. I'm going to show you something. All right. 2 credit cards. One of them is from Capital One Spark Business, and the other one is from Chase Business Unlimited. They're both business credit cards, but they're not the same. Something is different about these. This card, this was when I was a young pup and before I knew better. This card is based on my personal credit attached to my business. This card is based on my business alone. It's not attached to me at all. So there's a way, and again, this is a marathon. It's strategic and methodical. You see an application, they're all going to ask for your credit, your social security number. But as you build your business, and there's a way, you don't want to jump into credit cards first. You want to go another route. You want to start with the different type of net 30 accounts as you start to build your business and grow from there. So earlier I was talking about how you're rated on your business credit. You see here, if you want to maintain 91 through 100 credit score, expected, you're paying your bills 21 to 30 days before they're due. Okay, realistically, no one does that. No one pays their bill 30 days before it's due. It's okay. The second is you get discounted 2 days to 20 days sooner than a term. 2 days to 20 days. That's more accurate. That's a little bit more in line with the way businesses pay their bills. And the 80, you get the 80 credit score. That's when you're term and punctual on the due date. You're not late, you're great. With an 80 credit score on your business credit model, you can buy just about what you want. You're in the 80 percentile, and a B is always good. But if you notice, you start to go lower than 80, 0 to 79, all of those things are rated. They're beyond turn. They're not good. If you find a business 60 to 70, that's not good. I mean, that business is late on paying their bills. This, all you have to do is pay your bills on time to keep and maintain your business credit and build that up even stronger. Now, I talked about some of the items that you need in order to build business credit. And these are the standard. You have to do this. And I'm going to go through each one. In the video, you heard me say that LLC is not the preferred standard. A lot of people want to go LLC. And the IRS will not tell you this. IRS will simply tell you you need to talk with an attorney. But the preferred models are, there's an addition now. The preferred models are your general corporation, your S corporation. Your generals are C corporations. That's the gold standard. The next is your S corporation. That's your subchapter corporation. And then the new one is a benefit corporation. And the fourth is a nonprofit. All of these are corporations. So even though you have a nonprofit or a not-for-profit, there's a difference in those two. Nonprofit means you're not designed to make a profit. Not-for-profit is you can make a profit, you're just not focusing on making a profit. But if you make one, you're okay. Each one of those are corporations, and they're corporations for a reason. Again, I want to be able to call you and talk to someone, and I want to make sure your business is stable. So stability and accountability are the primary things that corporate creditors look at. But now, second is your business address. I talked about in the video where a PO box or a UPS store mailbox, never good, never good. If you rent, if you have a mortgage, you can use your home address as your business address. Why? Because they can find you. They know you live there. You also heard me talk about corporate email. My email is seday@FSB only. It makes a corporate creditor take you serious. Not going to dwell on that. But the fourth, just out of, I'm not going to ask people to chime in, but how many of you have a telephone number, a landline telephone number? In 2023, almost no one, unless it's coming through your cable provider, and those things are called voice over internet protocol, VoIPs. But the best way to get a business telephone number, in my own years of research, is from magicJack. magicJack actually shows up as a landline. And that number is yours. As long as you pay your 40 or 50 or 60 bucks a year, that number is yours. And it can go with you and your business anywhere you go. So I highly recommend a magicJack, and they're not paying me for this. But I recommend the magicJack because it shows up as a landline. Next is your tax ID number. Employee identification number, tax ID number, they're all the same. This is acquired through the IRS through a form SS4. Once you get your tax ID number, you have gotten the Social Security number for your business. But you got to go back to number one. You must have a legal structure. Let me go back to legal structure for a second. You can have an LLC. There's nothing wrong with an LLC, but an LLC has members instead of shareholders. And this is why corporate creditors will look closer at you, the individual, in a limited liability company than they will in a corporate structure, in a corporation. Because as a member, you can be a managing member of your LLC or a member of your LLC. Now, let's say that Sandy got into some legal trouble with his business, or Small Business Only LLC. I got into some legal trouble. I could actually turn that business over to anyone. So when I turn that business over, the leadership of the LLC just walked away. Now imagine if a company, if a corporate creditor has given that LLC credit and the leader of that company walks away for whatever reason. They don't know the incoming legal structure, the incoming management of that company. This is why you are looked at a little bit more stringent when it comes to getting business credit for an LLC, but it is possible. It is very possible. Going back to going to number 6, Dunn's number. This is issued through Dun & Bradstreet. Most companies do not have a Dunn's number. And it's strange because Dun & Bradstreet provides a 9-digit number just like the IRS does. And remember, the IRS, the tax ID number is for tax purposes, tax collecting purposes for the IRS. But Dun & Bradstreet will issue you a 9-digit number, and that number is also attached to your business, not you, the individual, but your business. Number 7 is extremely important. Business classification codes. Let me explain this. So, with a business classification code, every business that is operating in the US falls under one of these codes. And it's normally under the SIC system, which is fading out. It's still prevalent because, again, this system was around for the last 80 years. But what's more prevalent now is the NAICS. That's the North American Industry Classification System. Under the NAICS codes, this is why it's very important that you know your NAICS or SIC codes in your business classification. Lenders will lend money to those business classification codes that are profitable. So say you were a had a construction company. Construction business is a profitable business. Businesses, corporate creditors don't mind lending to construction companies because they know those are for-profit companies and those businesses, they're very prevalent. But let's say you had a drive-in movie theater. I don't know about you, but I haven't been to a drive-in movie theater, not since I was a kid. So that number, that industry within itself is very small. So a lender would not be so apt to loan you money for a drive-in movie theater versus a construction company or versus a cinema. So if you see Cinemax or these theaters, they'll lend money to the theater before they will a drive-in movie theater. So knowing your business classification codes is extremely important when you are trying to ascertain business credit. Number 8, business bank account, extremely important. You heard me talk in the video about people doing business as, Sandy doing business as for small business only. You can have all of those others listed, all of them. And if you do not have a business bank account, you're considered a sole proprietor. Now, if that's what you want to be, that's fine. But a sole proprietor is basically you, the individual. If you try to get business credit as a sole proprietor, you're going to get this card, not this card, because this is attached to me, Sandy Day, and my business. That's what sole proprietor will do for you. So you definitely want to have a business bank account. And I dare say number 9 is probably the most important. Here's why. Again, stability is something that corporate creditors look at. So time in business is very relevant. When you have more than 2 years in business, keep this fact in mind. Most businesses in the US go out of business within their first 12 to 18 months. If you can survive those 12 to 18 months and you get to 24 months, your business has been around. It's been around. Number 10 on here would be making money. Your business have to be making money. However, in the book, you will hear net loss or negative income, loss income. All those things are not bad when it comes to business. And that's a part of the seminar things that we do. But keep in mind, these 9 elements here, these 9 tools are primary what you need to start a business and actually set yourself up to start receiving and growing, building business credit. Now, the last thing here is what I'm telling you is now is truly an all-day event. And this is where we started the Small Business Credit Survival Boot Camp. And in that boot camp, it's actually a collegiate level training, but it goes from A to Z. An hour and a half was not enough time to put you in tune with all the things that you need to do, because there is a system of how you build a business credit. Again, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But if you're willing to take that step into your business and put in that work, you can actually grow your business and start doing business like big corporations do. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Stop sharing. And now the floor is open for questions.
Mr. Day, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you remind me of the credit card that you said for, not the one based on the individual, but the one based on the business? What's the name of that one?
Okay, the one that was based on the individual was the Spark Business. Now, let me give you a caveat to that. It's not necessarily that Capital One made a mistake. It was me. I said when I was a young pup,
Sure.
And I got that card, I didn't understand the business side of business credit the way I've learned over the past 17 years. So in building out the business credit, I immediately applied for, I had my business. I did everything I told you not to do, right? I wasn't in business for 2 years. I did not have my business bank account, and I wanted a business credit card. So I reached out to Capital One. My personal credit was strong. Reached out to Capital One. It's like, oh yeah, we'll give you a business credit card, no problem. And it's attached to you and your business. I wanted a credit card, so I got the credit card. But that is not the way you want to do it. You want your business to speak for itself, not you speak for the business. And that's what I did. So that's the difference. But there is a way you can get a credit card through Capital One that's attached to your business and not you.
So Sandy, in the same way that you have Equifax, TransUnion, and so on, that monitors personal credit, I think she was asking about the one that monitors business credit. And I think you said that was Dun and Bradstreet. That's the example you gave?
Yes, okay. That's Dun and Bradstreet.
All right, so there are 2 people with their hands up. You could take them in the order they came.
Okay, Brother Robert.
Hi, good night. Well, this is not Brother Robert. This is his wife. Good night. Good evening. Well, evening where I'm at.
Sister Robert's wife, how are you?
Hi, good evening. Good evening to you and everyone on the platform. Okay, I have a question. So in your presentation, you alluded to the fact that business credit is somehow tied to personal credit. I wanted to ask, for you personally, have you ever struggled with bad credit, meaning that perhaps you were in a season where you're not able to pay your bills on time and that affected your credit report? That's one. And how did you bounce back from that to now be in a place where you have good credit and you're able to access financing through these other avenues to fund business?
That's an excellent question. Have I had bad credit? I'm going to say bad credit, not so good credit, bad credit. Credit is seasonal. Keep that in mind. As you go through life, your credit will ebb and flow. It'll ebb and flow. On the personal side, your credit will, you can do nothing and your credit score will drop in 1 month. And you still do nothing and your credit score will rise the next month. So have I had bad credit? Several times. Went through rough spots, as you mentioned, rough spots in life. I've been married for over 33 years. My wife and I, in that time, we've gone through ebbs and flows. Both had terrible credit. Both now have excellent credit. How did we do that? By learning the process. And remember what I said, paying your bills on time. That's the first and foremost thing that you have to do. You have to pay your bills on time. Now, I can dig deeper into that about payment and the way you do it, right? Beforehand, for the younger folks on the call, you couldn't pay your credit card over the phone or with your phone. You had an account set up, an app. That wasn't the case. You would get a mail, you would get a statement in the mail. And with that statement, you had to pay your bill before it was due. Well, one of the things that I learned years ago was I could make a copy of that statement and then I could pay part of my bill earlier. Excuse me, I could pay part of my bill earlier because that interest is based on 30 days. That's why you will have monthly statements. They're 30 days apart. But if you pay ahead of that 30 days, you actually reduce some of the credit. So that was one piece. I started paying my bill, breaking it up and sending it in. Another way was I started paying more than my minimum payment. Minimum payment, if you understand how interest works and you pay the minimum payment, a large portion of your minimum payment is going towards the interest. It's not going towards the principal. So what you do is, if your statement is $100, pay $125. If your statement is $25, pay $35. Because each time you pay more, you are knocking down your debt faster than your interest. You're still paying that amount, but you're knocking down your debt. So I went through a methodical process of learning how credit works, personal credit, and what I needed to do, pay my bills on time. Then I started reducing. I, like a lot of folks, hey, you gave me a $500 credit card. It was charged up, $500. I'm like, I got the credit, I can pay it over time. I started learning, no, if they give you a $500 credit card, you don't want to charge more than $125. And if you have the ability, pay it off every month. Now, you would think banks don't like people that pay their bills off every month or pay their credit cards off every month. They actually love you, because when you do that, it shows them that you are not a credit risk. You are a very low credit risk. Now, they won't make as much money off of you, but they will make it off somebody else that just pays the minimum payment. So it was a process of learning how credit worked, how I was a part of the credit, and how I could change where I was standing. So you hear me talk about those credit mixes. Utilize those. It's a process. I'll tell you, it takes time. It's not an overnight fix. But first and foremost, and one thing I didn't put in here, and I'll see if I can put it in the chat, but you should get a copy of your credit report every year. The federal government back in 2005 made it free. You can get, in some states, you can get actually 2 copies of your credit report every year. But I say get your free credit report, look at it. If something is not right, dispute it.
What sponsorally over the going on?
Say again?
Why go behind the
Oh, that was somebody that's jumping in. But back to that process, it's a learning how credit works, learning how you apply yourself into the credit and how you can affect the change. Did that address your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dayton Lindner.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
I'm good. Good evening, everybody. All right. That question was that she asked was similar to what I'm going to ask. For instance, you have a bad credit on your personal credit card, right?
Right.
And because I operate a business, and what you said about the both cards, that is an eye opener to me, because the business linked to the personal credit card and so forth. So, like, oh, that card messed up at this point. How can I get a business credit card, and if what happened in the past will affect going forward getting a business credit card, right? And that is one. That is one. Outside of the US, all persons outside of the US like myself will activate or benefit in what you are saying at this time. How do we connect with it? So that's my question.
Okay. So you want to know how to, and correct me if I'm wrong, you want to know how to, you've gotten in a situation with a personal credit card, you want to do set up a business credit card, get business credit card, but you want to know how to fix this with the personal side.
Yes.
Okay. So, excuse me, let's go to the personal side first. Now, as I told you, it's a complex algorithm, but here are a couple of things that you got to understand. On your credit report, there's something on there called the date of last activity, right? So under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, lenders have to do certain things within certain time frames. So let's say that you have a charge off on your credit report based on a credit card. That charge off goes from the date of last activity. So let's say you have not used that card in 5 years, or you haven't done anything. That charge off has been on your credit report for the last 5 years. And I got a call today on a question about this. You have 2 years before that falls off of your credit report. But what will happen in the 6th year? These companies will start calling you. And as soon as they call you and you answer the phone, that clock starts all over again. So now your clock has started another 7 years on there. And we can talk more about personal credit, because that is the standard for getting yourself where you need to be to actually work towards your business. I'm just saying, business credit is standalone. You can do that by itself, but when it comes to personal credit, that's a monster. I did a seminar one time and I said, you can be married for 1 year and legally yoked for 28 because you shared credit together. Yeah. My wife and I, over the last 30 years, only shared credit one time. And when I say shared credit, that means we did a co-buying situation together. Her credit was her credit, my credit was my credit, and if both of our credits were separate, we had double the buying power. So as much as I love my wife, I did not commingle my credit with hers, because now we have double the buying power. But let's say through those years from that previous question asked, let's say that our credit was linked together from that first year. When I defaulted on a car loan, it would affect her credit as well, because we have to understand terms that the system has gotten us to buy into, terms like co-signing. You're not co-signing, you're co-buying. So let's be real about it. You co-buy this vehicle with somebody. You co-buy this mortgage. You co-buy this loan. But back to your situation. So one of the things that you can do, and that depends, I don't know your personal situation totally, but one of the things that you can do is reach out to the credit card company. And I can tell you, if they've charged it off, they've already written that debt off, but it's going to follow you. You may get a call from a bill collector, a debt collector. That debt collector bought that loan, bought that charge off for pennies on a dollar, and they're trying to get the full amount from you. And there's a whole nother strategy behind dealing with debt collectors. Whew. But back to your credit. You want to be able to call the lender and see what you can do to work a payment plan out to get that off of your record, and they can get it back in good standing. And that's where you want to be, in good standing. But now, when you're building personal business credit, remember I told you this whole thing is like, this is a long process. But when you're building business credit, the first thing people do when building business credit is they go for a business credit card. No, don't go for a business credit card, because that is not building true business credit. Building true business credit is starting off with net 30 accounts, something like Uline or Quill office products. You do a net 30 on that, and there's a procedure of how to do that. But that starts building up your business credit. Then you go into those things like, before you get to revolving loans, which is what a credit card is, you get to charge loans, charge debt. You get to some installment loans. So there's a procedure in doing that. But first and foremost, take care of the personal side, but keep them separate. You can still build your business credit while you're working on fixing your personal credit.
So, right. So, yeah, understand all of that. So, what is it now before we venture into even a business credit? We have to tidy up what happened in the debt. We have to tidy up that first. That is what you're saying, because what you said earlier, that is exactly what happened. Because when I just do the credit card thing, that was the first time, and certain things they did not tell me, they did not explain to me.
They won't.
So after everything, the transaction and I use it and so forth, I didn't get no call or anything, but about a couple of months after or so forth, I start getting calls and all of those stuff. Understand?
Yeah.
So I tried to explain to them, say, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, but the only thing they need is their money. So
that's it.
The thing is what you're saying, I have to fix this first before I even talk about the business aspect.
Right. Technically, you can still work on the business side, but there are some procedures that you got to do on the business side while you're working on the personal side.
Because even if I'm going to do the business side, once I tell them my name, it's going to pull up, say, I have bad credit or something like that.
Because it's being attached to you.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Sandy.
Yes.
So before you take, Sandy, can you hear me? Before you take
Yes.
the other three persons whose hands are up, there are some questions that were put in the chat before they raised their hands. So somebody wants to know, because remember, many of our participants are not in the US. Someone wants to know, can they get a tax ID if they are non-Jamaican? I think the answer is yes, but I'll give you that question. There's which because I some with that. And the third question is about student loans. So can we do the tax ID if you are non-Jamaican question first, please?
Okay, the tax ID tax ID can be if you are not a U.S. citizen.
Not U.S.
Okay,
Correct.
so if you are a okay, so let me ask this for clarity. You're not a U.S. citizen, but you're living in the States? Is that what I'm understanding? You're living in the United States, but you're not a US citizen.
No, we're living in Jamaica.
I think that might be it. Oh, okay.
Okay, so you're living in Jamaica. Now, what I will have to do, and I talked with Andrea before this, I'll have to do some research on other countries outside of the US to see exactly what their standards are for developing and developing businesses. But I can tell you a lot of countries around the world base their model on the US because the US has a very strong corporate structure. It's over 100 years old. A lot of countries will base how the business structures are set up based on the US. But I will have to research that question for you and provide an answer back.
Yeah. Hello?
Okay.
Okay. The person also wants to,
Yeah, Andrea?
they want to open a business in the US. Yes, can you hear me?
Lady Andrea?
Can you hear me?
You're
Yes.
breaking up.
Yes, can you hear me? Because I can hear you.
Hello?
Go ahead, Apostle.
Hello?
Go ahead,
What?
Apostle.
Yes, what our presenter was saying is true. The system, like in Jamaica, the Caribbean, everything is literally in line with the US, especially business credit. And so
Got
it's
it.
the difference that if there is any difference, by the end of the year, everything remains the same globally.
Understand. Thank you. Okay. Kelly Scott asked if this applies to people outside the US or the US, outside of the US, or setting up businesses even in the US. Everything that I was telling you throughout this presentation was about setting up businesses in the US. Now, it gets deeper because you can also have a company in the US, and let's say you were doing business in another country. You can have what is called a foreign corporation that you are operating. Your primary company is in the US, but you are, say Apple, for example, is a good example. Apple is based in the US, but Apple also has China Corporation, but it's all based on Apple. The good thing is the money that is made through Apple in China, that money cannot be taxed by the US because it was made in another country. But that's a whole nother story. But when you think of companies like, say, McDonald's Corporation, McDonald's is a US-based corporation, but they have foreign entities, foreign corporations in other countries around the world. And those entities there are collecting money. But basically, everything that I was telling you here was about setting up a company within the US, within the 50 states of the US, 50 states and territories in the US. Okay, we'll take one more online and then I will go to Brother Francis. Can you remove student loans more than 10 years from your credit report? Okay, here's the absolute bad news. Student loans, let me give you a little history. So the student loans is the only debt in America that you cannot say file bankruptcy against. There's a reason for that. And I learned this in law school. A bunch of lawyers took out a bunch of student loans. And before this was law, they were smart. They're lawyers. They know the legal system. So what they ended up doing was amassing $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in student loan debt. After doing that, they found, once they got their Juris Doctorate, they filed for bankruptcy. At the time, this was not into the law. So you could file bankruptcy against a student loan. After that happened, legislation was passed in the US, what is called an omnibus bill. An omnibus bill is a huge bill that they're trying to get passed really quick, so they will throw a lot of stuff in it. they threw in student loans. So student loans now you cannot file a bankruptcy against student loans. So can you have a student loan removed from your credit report after 10 years? If you still owe the student loan, no, it'll stay there indefinite. A student loan will. A bankruptcy will go after 10 years, but a student loan will stay there as long as you owe the student loan. All right, Brother Francis.
Pleasant night, sir.
How are
Sir
you?
Sandy, Sister Andrea, Minister Marsha, Apostle Liston, and Pastor Carolyn, other pastors, and all participants on this platform, a pleasant good night or day, somewhat there. The question that I wanted to ask, the fact that there are secrecy within businesses, which will always from time to time remain unknown, but the presentation from time to time will always be, so enticing. I want to find out for persons who are within their job settings now, and they are willing to achieve a business without no illegality. And whilst I make mention to illegality, I'm making reference to backdoor deals, things that person would have done within their life or in their tenure to achieve their business. What do you have to encourage persons who wanted to go through this business thing straight and clean, serving God, and they are in a job and they wanted to have their business, but they are working? How would they go about achieving that business based off the fact that you would have mentioned that the business credit, it's a process, it's a long process. Yes. So the fact that they will be having their job, what would they be doing in terms of to set their job, set their business on an eye, and also they are within their job settings in terms of they really wanted to have it, but they have to keep their job. What advice would you have to give to such a person on this platform?
Great question. I'll say this. When I first started businesses, when I started my first business, I left my job. I went cold turkey. God, we're gonna make this walk. Went into it. And I suffered and I struggled because I had to believe. I knew what I wanted to do and I went after it. But there were a lot of things to learn in building and growing a business, right? So it took time for me. I made a lot of money over the years. I lost a lot of money in businesses over the years, but it was a learning process. So my advice is, if you have a job, the best time to start your business is when you have a job, because you have income coming in from your job that's going to sustain those monthly bills that you have to pay. I went cold turkey. Like I said, I lost a lot, but I learned over the years. So if I had to do it all over again, I would have my job. I would keep my job while I grow my business incrementally, grow my business, right? Because if you have something that the public wants, that's if you're selling to the public. If you have something that another business wants, that's business to business dealing, they're going to continue to want it. You just have to build it strategically to give it to them. And I wouldn't leave my job until my business can sustain my income, right? To make sure that I can pay my mortgage, I can pay my car, I can pay whatever needs to be paid to still live my life fruitfully while I'm growing my business. That would be my advice. I would never tell anybody to squash or subjugate their passion, but learn how to strategically align your passion along with your business. I mean, let's be real about it. We only have so many hours in a day that are prime time hours. And most of those prime time hours are going to our jobs. You know, the man, it's going to the job, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, those are your prime time hours. But when I was doing it, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was, you know, in it cold turkey, but now I would be doing my job and doing, say, like this, right, on a Saturday afternoon. Let me talk to you about my business. Let me do this. And the thing is, and this is just kind of to like put a cherry on top of this, your business, when you're doing your own business, you are always marketing. So if I said, you know, brother, what business are you in? You're in the marketing business because you are constantly marketing your business. You should eat, sleep, and drink your business. You should know your business, right? That's how people believe in you and in your business because you believe in it. But you should do this all encompassing while you have a job. That would be my advice.
And I must say a big thank you, sir, for your answer. Because
Brother Bolden, Brother Bolden, we're at the top of the hour now, so I'm going to interrupt you and have him answer a couple of the other questions that were there. Thank you so much for your question. Okay, so he had a question about there was a question about whether somebody could get a tax ID if they are if they're a non-US citizen. If you live in the United States and you're not a US citizen, yes, you can get a tax ID, but
Yes,
not
you
if you're
can.
living in Jamaica. Okay.
Right.
In Jamaica, the system is to use a TRN.
Okay, correct.
Yeah, and then the questions that I want you to take down, please, Sandy. Some wants to know if they want to open a business in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Do they need to get a tax ID if they're not a US citizen?
Okay, so
And the
yes, you
second,
need it. You
hold
need
on,
a tax ID.
because
Okay,
I
go
keep
ahead.
getting bumped. I keep
Go.
getting bumped, so I'm asking you to write the questions down.
Okay.
The second question is if the person wants to open an Airbnb business, what business structure would you suggest they use? And the third question is, because I keep getting bumped, in case I get bumped again, I don't want to. Can you remove student loans of more than 10 years from your credit score? So those
No,
are the
we
three
addressed
questions.
that one. Yeah, we addressed that one on the student loans. Airbnb. Okay, so an Airbnb, you can help me understand this. Now, you want to start an Airbnb company. Is this an Airbnb like you're using your property, or you want to use other people's property? They sign on with you with the concept of Airbnb. Is that what we're talking about?
So it will be another property that you'd be using, not your property, but another property that you maybe either own or rent.
Yes.
And you would create the Airbnb, but what structure? Because at first I thought I would do like an LLC, but you were saying that that wasn't the right way to go. So.
Okay, it's not that that's not the right way to go. If you notice, my company, this one here, the For Small Business Only, it's an LLC. And the reason it's an LLC and not a corporation is because with an LLC, with this LLC, I'm the managing member of this company. Nobody knows the knowledge in my company like I know it. I started it based on my research, based on my knowledge learned. Now, I have a real estate investment company. It's a corporation. The reason it's set up as a corporation is because I buy property. I buy property that either I'm going to hold or I'm going to develop or I'm going to sell. So it's an investment company, which means I plan on having a ton of properties under that corporation. However, your Airbnb, if you're looking at buying one property or maybe two, you can have an LLC for each one of those properties. So let's say you bought 4 properties and you had all of them originally under the LLC, under one LLC. You don't have to have it as a corporation because you are the driving force in that company. But let's say you want to bring on investors. Now you can graduate up to a corporation. You can't reduce, you can't go backwards. So if you're a corporation, you can't go to an LLC, but if you're an LLC, you can graduate up to a corporation. But in that instance, I've been a real estate investor for years, and I've had several properties, and I've had an LLC on each one of those properties. I didn't have them under one umbrella because once I sold that property, I was done with that property. I can now transfer that property over to another LLC. Let me use the right word, not transfer. I could purchase that property with my other LLC. They were separate. So in what I'm hearing, my suggestion would be an LLC. You can still build credit with an LLC. It's just a little bit more stringent where you buy the property and let's say you have, just throwing out numbers. Let's say you buy this property for $80,000, but this property is now worth $100,000. You have $20,000 of equity in that. That can be under your LLC. So let's say you decide to go and buy another property with this same LLC. You can use that $20,000 at that $20,000 of equity as collateral towards purchasing that other property under that LLC. While at the same time, you're creating a relationship with the bank and you're actually building business credit for that LLC. So an LLC is not necessarily the wrong structure. It's the structure that is least looked at by a corporate creditor, but you can build credit with it. I have for small business only, which is an LLC, I have built business credit with that LLC.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Brother Patrick has had his hand up for some time.
Yes, he has.
Brother and the Patrick? Other person, I think they lost it. But at some point after you take his question,
yes,
you've been talking about LLCs, S Corp, and C Corp. Maybe you can that after you take his question. Thank you.
Yeah, I can dig into that a little deeper. Yes, I can. Brother Patrick.
Yes, good evening. I know you touch a little bit on what I am about to ask, but I need you to go a little bit deeper. So if you have your credit card, right?
Yes.
You haven't used it for a while, but you keep paying on it. Would that affect your credit score or your ability to achieve things if you go to do credit?
If you wanted to get another credit or you want to get some more credit somewhere else.
Right.
The deal, because you are paying on it and not using it, it's not affecting you.
Okay.
Actually, as long as you are, remember I said timely payments, as long as you are paying your bill on time and you're not defaulting, you're not late, you're fine. Now, you want to pay more to get that debt down even further.
Yeah.
Right? But you can still go and apply for other business credit apparatuses through those to actually continue to build business credit.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
All right.
So let's touch on the corporate structures again. A little bit deeper into it. With a general corporation or a C corporation, you've heard me talk about that. A C corporation is, you have a board of directors. Your board of directors meet monthly. You have minutes, annual minutes. Your board of directors are listed on the state corporation's website. Your corporate officers, that's your CEO, your VPs, those people are listed on the corporate website, not just the corporate website, on the Secretary of State's website. This is why corporate creditors like corporations, because I can touch you when I want you. I can find you. I can reach out to any one of your directors on your board of directors, and I can find out who I need to talk to in that company. That gives them that sense of security, the corporate credit. It gives them that sense of security. Now, again, that's the gold standard. They have shareholders, and they're not limited. They can have unlimited shareholders under a C Corp or general corporation. Under an S Corp, which is a subchapter corporation, you can only have 100 shareholders. You can't have more than that. You don't have to have minutes once a year, annual minutes. You don't have to meet but once a year on your subchapter corporation, right? They also prefer that because all of those corporate officers are also listed on the Secretary of State website. The only difference, well, that's one difference. Another difference between an S Corp and a C Corp is a C Corp has what is called double taxation. And what that means is the corporation itself is taxed just like all of the shareholders. Under an S Corp, subchapter corp, and LLC, they are pass-through taxation. So basically what that means is if the company had $1 million profit, and let's say you worked on your job and you had your debt to, not debt to income ratio, your, it's an income. And the word slips me. I apologize, but it's your adjusted gross income. Let's say your adjusted gross income is at 10%. Then under that subchapter corporation, that $1 million profit would be taxed at 10%. That's the sense of pass-through taxation. Under a corporation, under the C Corp, that profit is taxed for the corporation. And if you, the K1 scheduled shareholder, receives money, it's taxed as well. That's the double taxation. So that's the biggest difference on an S Corp, on a C Corp, general corporation, or a subchapter corporation. With an LLC, it has the same premise. If your LLC has $100,000 profit, it's taxed through that pass-through taxation is based on your individual tax bracket, which means you should pay yourself from your company. If you pay yourself $10,000 a year and your company made $100,000 profit, then it's taxed at your individual tax rate, not the LLC itself. It's based on yours, which makes them very popular for business owners, LLCs and subchapter corporations, and make them very popular because they have that pass-through taxation. And when you're talking about your adjusted gross income, because you can write off everything once you have that legal structure. When you're talking about that pass-through taxation, that's one of the biggest benefits of it. Like my next title, not for the book that's coming up, but it's The Secret to Wealth in America. And the secret to wealth in America is owning a corporation. When you go to looking at taxes and the tax brackets, a corporation provides you a whole lot more tax advantages than being, say, a sole proprietor. It doesn't offer you any of the tax advantages like a corporation does. LLCs offer great tax advantages. So those are just some of the things that you want to look at. Thank you, Kelly. It was the adjusted gross income. It's a word that was slipping me.
So everyone who lives in the United States is entitled to getting at least one free credit report per year.
Yes.
And you can get one from all three major credit bureaus whether we're
Yes,
talking about Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian.
right. And that's for your
And with
personal credit.
for your personal credit.
Right.
And with that, I wanted to say thank you very much, Brother
Absolutely.
Sandy, for coming to talk with us today about business credit. Colleagues online, you will notice that he told us it's important to have an LLC, to do things to protect yourself as you build a business. And one way is to have an LLC. He talked to us about overcoming financial hurdles as you build the business. And he talked to you about how to build business credit over time, which he said is not an instant fix. It takes time. And there are a number of things you need to do. Pay your bills on time. Don't use up all the credit that you're allowed. Focus on your debt to income ratio and the credit mix that you use, among other things. So and these apply primarily to those of us who are in the United States of America, but it also means that persons in Jamaica who want to start a business would also need to think about fiscal responsibility and do some of these things. Thank you so very much for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us, Sandy. I think that this is something that we probably need to have a follow-up on. You've said several times that this is a huge topic.
Yes.
And we can look at it from many different angles. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy Saturday afternoon to join us. And we thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, the wealth of knowledge that you have, and giving us all these nuggets on business credit. Thank you once again.
Absolutely. Thank you all. And thank you for having me, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.